The biggest problem in this government is corruption. It's not that in Kibaki's government there was no corruption. It was there. Because we also saw the ministers who actually were fired, you know. But the biggest problem this government has or is facing is corruption. Because in any mega project, there are issues of corruption, misappropriation of funds. And you see, the moment corruption becomes so high, it makes the living standards of people, people are going to suffer. Because at the end of the day, when money is stolen and money has to be recovered, they end up taxing or overtaxing the people. So if things are overtaxed, obviously life will be hard. And that is why people are comparing life during the price of basic commodities during Kibaki's tenure and this government's tenure. And you see there's a big difference. And that is why people are saying, back in Kibaki's government, we had money in the pocket. Now we are looking for money that we can't even find. So I believe going forward, the next government that comes needs to tackle the issue on corruption. Corruption on any government project or even in the offices of the government. Because at the end of the day, once we even try and reduce the one-time corruption that is happening right now, because it's more or less like theft, things will change. Unless we do that, we will be here. People will be ranting on Twitter. You will be interviewing them and saying the same things. So whoever wants to come into office next time has to look at corruption. Because we cannot talk about growing our economy when corruption is still bleeding. It's like putting 5 shillings in the left pocket and picking it from the right. It doesn't make sense, or it has a hole. So we need to work on corruption, minimize it. So as we move forward, after minimizing it, we find a way of ending it completely. Yes.
And of course, some of the legacy you were just touching upon about Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki was in 2010 when he raised that particular document that ushered in a new day for Kenya as well. And of course, a document that has been even hailed across our borders, saying that the constitution that was brought up by not just him, but many other leaders paved way for this particular country. Would you say that is his biggest achievement?
That has to be, because people, for a very long time, people are crying for a new constitution. And there are those who fought for it and never saw 2010. Most died in the trenches. Most ran away because of certain issues during the time they were fighting. So I believe that in itself is a big legacy, because it was seen to happen during your time as a president. In short, you allowed it. Because you see, most governments try to prevent that from happening. Right now, the same clamor is happening in Tanzania, where they're talking about a new constitution under Suluhu's government. Because back in Magufuli's government, that would never be possible. Now they're trying to have a situation where they can talk about a new constitution. Whether it will happen is a game of wait and see. But I believe that in itself is a legacy, because now the constitution we have, it is one of the most forward-thinking documents in this world. So at the end of the day, that he goes down with that as a good legacy on his side. Yeah.
And of course, we saw the current administration trying to change that particular document, saying that we do not want to see the scenes of what happened during Kibaki era 2007, 2008. But it begs the question, the Truth and Justice Reconciliation Report, the Kriegler Report, was brought out during the tenure of Mwai Kibaki. If that particular document, the former head of state clearly stated, will solve all the problems we witnessed back in 2002, 2007, 2008, why not implement those documents before even bringing a new one?
That's true, you see, because it's like saying the Constitution has a problem, which you haven't implemented fully, right? But you remember, so many reports are there. The Land Commission report is there. We also have the TGRC is there. The issue is about the issue on implementation is more or less goodwill. Do you have the goodwill as the sitting head of state to actually implement the reports? If you don't have the goodwill, you remain at the same place. And then you come and say now that, oh, let us amend the Constitution. We will solve or heal issues of 207. For that to happen, we need to stop things like rigging. That doesn't, you see, you don't need to change the Constitution for that, because there needs to be goodwill. And the goodwill here is we need proper leadership. Because at the end of the day, if you look at our leadership, we have a crisis in this country. Because even Chapter 6 of the Constitution is not well observed. Most of the people get to office, you realize, not people worthy of being in office. We saw the other day the EACC telling Kenyans, make sure when you go to vote, don't elect people with let's say, scrupulous character. But at the end of the day, they always get into office. And when they get into office, they fight the cases that they are there against them because they have the money, they have the power. So in short, what we are saying is, for us to uphold Chapter 6, it has to start with us as the people, because you know the difference between a leader X and Y who appear before you. If someone appears before you, let's say they come to seek your votes like they are doing right now, and the only thing they're offering you is money or packet of flour with no ideas, what do you expect them to do once they get into office? The money they're spending has to be made. So which means whatever they will find in office, they will either take it completely or even look for other loopholes to actually steal from you. So at the end of the day, I believe all these reports that are lying in State House, because you see they always deliver to the sitting head of state, and it's not even during Kibaki's time, the reports that he got, which are never implemented. It's like we have a safe where they are put for just beautification. So I believe moving forward, we need to find a way where we implement this report so that we talk about healing. The country has not healed because there are people who still talk about the Ogala massacre. They have never gotten their justice. There are those to date, after 2007, are displaced. They never got settled. You realize? So how do you heal all that? That is when you put those who participated in these exercises to book. That is what we need to do going forward. And the Constitution as it is, sadly for those, in most governments, they see the Constitution as as an impediment.
Okay.
In that, most politicians don't like following the law. So they try to look for loopholes. But the Constitution that we have right now is more or less serving the people and not serving the interests of the political class. That is where they find themselves at loggerheads with the law every time. And that is why the BBI failed. You realize? In as much as they talk about how they are going to do some tinkering and come back with it, if they don't follow the law, it will fail again. So the drafters of this Constitution were wise enough to make sure they drafted a document that protects itself from alienation from the political class, which we saw during the independent Constitution, which was amended to a point where it even became more or less, for lack of a better word, useless, you realize? And it was prone to manipulation. So at the end of the day, we thank those who came up with this document. Yes, it has some loopholes, but that is the beauty about a Constitution. There are days where we'll get to amend, but we have to follow the channel. We have to follow the law to the latter.